Well, I want to apologize to all of my viewers. The quality of video in this episode of Hunt Camp Mail is very poor. Unfortunately, the settings on my camera were wrong and it just came out really shitty, and I just don't want to reshoot the entire thing. It took too long. So please excuse me this month. The video quality is poor, but the quality of content is high. Welcome to the June 2026 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I hope everybody did good on their draw tags this year. You know, I tried to get tags in 4 different states and I struck out in all of them, even in my own state. So I hope all of you were luckier than I was on your draw tags this year. I think a lot of states are really cracking down on out-of-state tags, and you know, it's becoming more problematic now. But I did secure some nice farms in South Dakota to hunt pheasants this fall. You know, and I'm not going to hunting lodges, you know, where they release birds or whatever, you know, or just have some big, nice lodge for wealthy people. I'm actually going to hunt on working farms for wild birds. And it'll be nice to be back in South Dakota again. And Nubs is also coming on that hunt with me. So I'll bring all of you along on that adventure with us. Last month, Canadian viewers mentioned that my channel was being shadow banned up in the Great White North, and I actually think it's happening everywhere. This was the first month ever in Desert Dog Outdoors history where Hunt Camp Mail actually outperformed my regular content, and I did a couple of banger videos this month and they almost got no views. I also want to say to everybody around the world visiting the United States right now for the World Cup, we're glad to have you here. You guys are great. I ran into a big group of Belgians last week, and they were just fantastic people. So, you know, welcome to the United States, and we're happy to have you here. Well, with the intro out of the way, let's get to this month's mail. And our first letter for June is from Frank in Miami Lakes, Florida. Frank wrote, "Palolo worms are hatching in the Keys. I heard near Bahia Honda. Unfortunately, I have to head out to the West Coast in the morning. I have to go to Cape Coral tomorrow, and I'll see if they're also hatching near Gasparilla Island. If so, I'll head out to Boca Grande. I miss this practically every year. There's always something going on." Well, it's good to hear from you again, Frankie. And yeah, I've tried for at least 10 different years to time my trip to Florida during the worm hatch. But my timing just always seems to be off every year. Regrettably, I've never fished the worm hatch in my entire lifetime. And I've literally tied dozens of flies in anticipation for it. I have to plan my fishing trips well in advance just to get away from work, and those damn worms just won't work around my personal schedule. You live in South Florida, and even you have a hard time fishing the worm hatch, so it's that hard to time it. On Boca Grande, I do everything I can to avoid that place these days, you know, whenever I can. That place is just a madhouse when the tarpon come through the channel. But if you do go to that area, there's actually some really fine backcountry fly fishing in Charlotte Harbor. And I really enjoyed being pulled around through the mangroves away from all the crowds. And it's really great to hear from you again, Frankie. It's actually been a while. I finished that excellent bottle of rum that you sent me last year, and I want to thank you again for that. Best wishes to you and your family. And our next letter is from Grant. Grant wrote, "Hey, Desert Dog, I want to thank you on behalf of your viewers for the information you dispense for free. I'm blessed by having an Uncle Bill that I can always bounce questions off of related to hunting and shooting. Not everyone has an Uncle Bill like I do, and I think you fill that space for a large chunk of your audience. I've rewatched every video of yours, and I don't think I've ever heard you mention what your dream hunt would be. You're well-traveled and have hunted all over, so I'd love to hear what your grail hunt is. I got to complete a dream hunt of mine in January this year in the Velebit Mountains of Croatia. Also, on your old topic of watches, the Zen 556 RSI gets my vote for the best adventure watch. Thank you for the letter, Grant, and for enjoying my content and supporting my channel. As odd as this sounds, I really don't think I have a bucket list hunt. I really haven't thought about that. I definitely have bucket list fishing destinations, but I guess I just never viewed hunting like that in my life. I just love the adventure more than, killing the animal, I guess. But I really like to push myself mentally and physically, and I would love to do an extreme high elevation Marco Polo Argali hunt. Everybody tells me that it's the most demanding hunt that a person can do, and I'd love to experience that before I get too old to do it. I'd also love to hunt a bongo, old style, on foot through the forest. Unfortunately, most modern outfitters use dogs, or salt licks now, and I'm really not interested in hunting like that, even to get a bongo. And those hunts are also just very expensive, and I'd rather do 3 other separate Africa hunts than just that one bongo hunt. So I guess that's not really a bucket list trip either. But like you, I'm also a big fan of Zen watches, so I wore my Zen 104 just for you, Grant. And we're really rolling along here today. And our next letter is from Jerry in Stockton, California. Jerry wrote, I've been watching your videos and booked an Africa hunt based on your suggestions. Have you ever heard of Africa Prime Outfitters? I put down a $3,000 deposit for a South Africa hunt through them, and I think I got scammed. I wired the money to an overseas account, and now the phone number doesn't work and the website is gone. Do you have any way of contacting them? Whew, Jerry. I really want to give you the bullshit button, Jerry, but I won't because I feel sorry for you. Just to clarify on this, Jerry, I never, ever recommended that outfitter, so I don't know where you got that. And I never suggested a South Africa hunt to you. In fact, I repeatedly tell my viewers to try to hunt elsewhere. And it really sounds like you did absolutely no research at all before you spent your money, and that's a huge mistake. Most Africa hunting scams have something to do with the South Africa outfitter. In your case, I bet the person that you wired that $3,000 to has nothing to do with hunting. They're just a scammer. And you just really let your guard down and you ended up getting fooled. In firearms training, we always talk about situational awareness. Basically, always be on the alert for trouble, always position yourself to have the tactical advantage, and always avoid trouble by avoiding putting yourself in bad situations. But situational awareness goes way beyond eating at a restaurant or withdrawing money from an ATM late at night. You should always use situational awareness when you deal with people. I don't care if it's your wife, your kids, or a good friend. You have to realize that anyone can deceive you. And our next letter is from Doug in Loveland, Colorado. Doug wrote, I know you are a fan of Murray leather. I see you have a couple of ammo belts with the elastic. Yours don't look worn. You must be taking care of them and storing them empty. Before I jump in, is the elastic up to snuff, or should I get the leather loops? Well, Doug, for how expensive these damn belts are, you better believe that I take good care of them. When I return from Africa, I always clean these belts really good and I store them properly. And I never store these with ammunition in the loops. I like the elastic loops because they hold a better variety of cartridge. I can use everything from 375 to my 458 lot in these. And with the leather loops, once you break them in and shape those leather loops, they basically only hold that one cartridge perfectly at that point. So elastic loops, in my opinion, are just a lot more versatile, I think. Leather loops also expand and contract in different weather, and they tend to hold moisture like all leather does. So in really humid places, your brass will often come out looking extremely tarnished after it's been in your leather loops. And I guess I just really don't like that. And I've never experienced that with the elastic loops, which seem to breathe better and not really trap moisture. In tropical Africa, I see about 50% of the PHs using belts that do have leather loops, and the rest are using dangerous game belts with elastic or canvas loops. But it's a matter of personal preference, and I just prefer the elastic loops. And our next letter is from Tony from the great state of New Mexico. Tony wrote, I just bought my first over and under shotgun, a Browning Satori, and I plan to shoot clays for fun and to hunt birds with it. I'm trying to learn to shoot it well, but I'm struggling a little compared to my Winchester SX3 semi-auto shotgun I was shooting before. I think the middle bead on the rail is messing me up. What is that middle bead for? Because it makes no sense. Unless you're patterning, testing out barrel regulation, or turkey hunting, we don't aim shotguns, we point them. You shot your old gun better than your brand new Browning Satori because that SX3 probably fit you a lot better. I mean, that's the truth. So to your question, the middle bead on your shotgun is not for aiming like you think it is. It's to verify gun fit, to practice mounting the shotgun in full alignment, and to establish a ready position if you're shooting clays. Notice that the middle bead is a lot smaller than the front bead is. So this is so you can do something called stacking beads. So when you stack the beads, you don't center the beads in alignment like you would be aiming. You actually stack them on top of each other. The large front bead sits on top of the smaller middle bead, and it forms a figure 8. This system was invented by trap shooters to get full barrel alignment and see targets without the barrels obstructing the view. But most hunters want a full flat rib like this hunting-oriented shotgun right here, this field gun. And they don't really like a center bead at all. It just gets in the way. But when pheasants or clays are flying, you don't look at the bead anyways. You should be concentrating on the target and letting your brain kind of work on autopilot. But your gun has to fit you in order for that to work. And our next letter is from Chip in Maine. Chip wrote, your videos are a huge help to me in preparing for my first hunt in South Africa. From clothing to rifle case to practice, your advice was spot on. I took your advice and got a Model 70 in 375 H&H for the hunt. A lot of practice contributed to my success. I went with friends to Limpopo province near Lefalali. The hunting wasn't quite what I expected. I did stalk a zebra and a warthog on foot. However, I ended up shooting 3 more animals from the top of the truck and was in a blind when I shot the Cape buffalo. I did kill him with 1 shot, so at least there's that. Well, thank you for the letter, Chip. And I have a very interesting story about Lefalali. We call it the legend of the Lefalali log. Trust me, it's not an appropriate story for YouTube, but if we ever meet in person around a warm fire with a cold beer in hand, I might tell you the story about the Lefalali log. I think you found out the reason why I try to steer most of my viewers away from South Africa and most of the game ranches in Namibia. You spent all that money for basically something that felt like a canned hunt to you. And I could tell the tone of your letter. That's kind of how you felt. Trust me, you're going to look at those trophies on your wall every day, and you're going to think of that if you're a hunter like I am. But, this was your first trip to Africa, so chalk it up to a learning experience. The next time you go, you're ready for a real free-range hunt without fences and with a PH who basically has a PhD in hunting and wildlife. South Africa is a great country to hunt in for first-timers, for families, or if you have a really picky wife, that you're taking along with you. But to get that real experience and trophies you just have to earn, you usually need to hunt somewhere else. And our next letter is from Hagen from Germany. Hagen wrote, "LIPSEYS often has, in my opinion, the best Rugers and Smiths on the market. One of the most exciting additions to their lineup in recent times has been the Ruger Hawkeye Alaska Bush Rifle, a stainless Hawkeye with a gray laminate stock and open sights, chambered in 9.3 by 62 and 35 Whelen. It seems like the perfect Alaska rifle and also reminds me a lot of your stainless 375 H&H Model 70. The only issue is that I'd like the Hawkeye actions to be smoother. What are your thoughts? Is this the best Hawkeye yet?" Well, thank you for the letter, Hagen. And I believe you asked two questions in your letter. So I'll answer your last question first. Yes, I do think that this LIPSEYS run is the best Hawkeyes ever made, probably. On your second question, the only thing that smooths up in M77 action that's having issues like that is time. Cleaning and lubricating the bolt might help a little bit, but it will probably still disappoint a little bit. My advice is to put on a couple of older episodes of Hunt Camp Mail and sit on your couch running the action back and forth for a couple hours. You never know, that might help. But the real question you should be asking is, will I end up with a good barrel or a shitty one? Another question you probably need to ask is, will my scope rings ever align on that cast receiver with those idiotic proprietary mounting method? I mean, those are the questions you should really be asking when you shoot an M77. You may get a good one, but then again, maybe not. I've never seen an M77 that passed my scope ring alignment test. Most were so bad that lapping is even out of the questions because you just need to take too much off the rings. Even really expensive Alaska arms rings are always off, and it's not the ring's fault. And our next letter is from James in Mountain City, Tennessee. James wrote, "Hello, Desert Dog. I always enjoy your content. I recently watched your video on the Browning Auto 5. I have 5 of the old humpbacks and a total of 9 barrels. I still need a Sweet 16 though. Thank you for the informative video and especially talking about the friction rings. When I talk to people who have inherited Grandpa's Auto 5, I ask how the friction rings are set, and I would say 90% of the people don't know what I am talking about. Glad to see people educating owners on the subject." Well, the friction ring setup on Auto 5s is usually the culprit when somebody bitches about an Auto 5 cycling. But people also don't realize that the 60-year-old springs in their semi-auto shotgun probably need to be changed out. Normal wear parts are hard for people to comprehend these days because younger people usually just discard things when they stop working instead of fixing them. The great thing about the Auto 5 is that all the parts are still readily available. And our next question is from Mike in Northern California. Mike wrote, "You repeatedly tell your viewers that you like 3-position safeties. Why do you prefer them?" I think I've answered this numerous times on Hunt Camp Mail before, but we'll go ahead and do it again. I prefer 3-position safeties on hunting rifles But for something like a target rifle or just, a fun shooting rifle out there, a 3-position safety really has no advantage in my opinion. Now, here's the reason I like 3-position safeties. If you're on a week-long elk or deer hunt, you'll probably shoot your rifle one time, right? But every time you get in and out of your truck, every time you cross a fence, every time you climb up a rock or a tree or do anything like that, you're constantly loading and unloading your rifle all day. And a 3-position safety allows you to do this with the gun on safe when it's in the middle position like this. But you can move it to the rear position and it locks the bolt down tight. So you get a locked bolt and a bolt you can run on safe. And usually a 3-position safety like the Winchester one right here, does more than a lot of your typical push feed safeties that just block the sear. This blocks the sear and the firing pin as well. And our next letter is from Steve, and Steve must not watch a lot of Hunt Camp Mail because he didn't say where he was from. Steve wrote, "My 4th trip to Africa is coming this September. My adult son will be hunting plains game. After this hunt, I'll be jumping on a plane to hunt elephant. I understand the motives and benefits of controlled elephant hunting. I know internally that taking such a magnificent animal will be very emotional for me. This might be difficult to answer, but how do you deal with such an emotional situation? Thanks for your perspective." Well, Steve, I don't know if you watched that video I posted maybe 3 months ago about tuskless elephants, but it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. I'm generally not a very emotional person at all. And I'm normally very good about not letting emotions influence my decisions. That being said, taking the life of an animal, any animal, should have some degree of emotion attached to it. Otherwise, we're no better than psychopaths, right? Elephants in particular are hard to deal with because of their high level of intelligence, their really strong family bonds, and their, long lifespans. They live just as long as we do. But you mustn't lose sight of the fact that they're simply animals living within their biome. The best thing you can do to alleviate, possible emotional problems over shooting an elephant, the best thing you can do is to make damn sure that you hunt and kill them ethically. You need to totally put your ego aside on an elephant hunt, even if that means allowing your PH to take a backup shot if your brain shot is off a little bit. Just don't let it suffer. I know a lot of people go to Africa. I would never ever let a PH take a backup shot of my animal. That's my animal. I paid for it. It's mine. I paid for it. You know what? Putting that elephant down fast is not only the ethical thing to do, but it's also a safety issue, especially if, you're hunting cows in a herd. If you don't put that thing down, you might be in trouble. So you need to put your ego aside on an elephant hunt and hunt it ethically and put it down humanely and fast. And that'll alleviate, just doing that alone will alleviate a lot of the emotional stress. Also, after you shoot your elephant, don't disrespect the carcass by standing on top of it or taking pictures with your foot on its head. Let it die like it lived as a noble, dignified beast that's worthy of your respect and admiration. Knowing that the elephant was hunted in a fair chase manner and dispatched quickly is important. And our next letter is from Bruce from Wyoming. Bruce wrote, "Desert Dog, if the introduction of new cartridges had been outlawed in 1970, how many, if any, fewer animals would have hit the dirt since then?" I love hypotheticals, but I need to clear up one thing about your hypothetical first. Back then, there was more hunters out hunting than there is today. Except for a spike when COVID started, hunting participation has been on a steady decline over several decades. So the woods aren't as crowded as you think. They were a lot more crowded in the past. You also have to look at game populations. There were only 4 million deer in the United States in 1970, which is your cutoff date. And now there's 30 million deer. So we have a lot more deer today. Actually, we have a lot more of all animals in the United States today than we did in 1970. But cartridges available in 1970 were no more potent than cartridges that we use today. In fact, the 300 Weatherby, which came out in 1944, outperforms the 300 PRC, which everybody thinks is just the most awesome 30 caliber ever invented today. Most new cartridges are just repackaged ballistics that have been around forever already. And I really don't think cartridges had anything to do with the number of animals killed since 1970. But I think a lot of the marketing hype in the industry is responsible for the number of animals wounded by modern hunters who think that they're super snipers. And our next letter is from Gator from West Texas. I love your name, Gator. You probably know my cousin. Gator wrote, "Did you refinish the stock on that 20 gauge Auto 5 you had on your last video? I have a 1967 Light 20 and the stock is in bad shape. I want it to look like yours. Also, I want to get into old side-by-side shotguns like LC Smith's. What do you look for when you inspect those old guns? You should do a video on that." The stock on this Auto 5 that I had in that video is 100% factory original, even down to the finish. The only thing I did was add Renaissance wax to it. So that's probably why it looks so cool with the luster and everything. And I put Renaissance wax on the wood of all my firearms. And if that stock, you don't think you can redo it, freshening it up, it might be, damaged beyond freshening up. It'll probably, maybe you don't like the wood grain or something in it and you just want to get something else. Go on eBay or Gunbroker and you can usually find some really nice Auto 5 stocks for sale on there. But when I go out and I look for an old shotgun, I always take kind of a kit with me, some items that help me determine the condition of the gun. And since this topic comes up a lot, I'll try to put together a video for you guys on buying old shotguns. Maybe I'll come out with it in the coming months. And that's actually a great video idea. And I almost never say that. And our last letter for the month is from Brett in Australia. Brett wrote, "I'm glad you enjoyed fishing in Western Australia and the cold bush chooks. For an American tourist, I was surprised how well your video showed how we do things down here. I watched your video 3 times and joined your channel. I have only hunted once, but I would like to do it more, and you are a good resource. I fly fish up near Cape York, and you have to go there on your next trip. I think Cape York is better than Exmouth." Well, thank you for the letter, Brett. And I have fished up that direction with Nomad many years ago. Nomad actually started doing specialty fly fishing trips. And I went up near there, but we never got quite to the tip of the Cape. And I never went around it and fished inside the Gulf. But I think my next trip to Oz will probably be to the Wessel Islands. A blue bastard is still on my bucket list. Well, that wraps up this month's mail. Here's some memes for June. Well, thank you for tuning in this month. And I have a surprise for you on the next episode of Hunt Camp Mail. I actually added a new member to the Desert Dog Outdoors team to hopefully enhance the experience for everybody. It's getting really hard to do all of this stuff by myself, and I did need some help. I also want to say happy 250th birthday to America. Please have a safe 4th of July, especially dealing with the fireworks. You really need your trigger finger. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.